Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone to please give a like and subscribe down below if you enjoy this content. We really appreciate it. We have David Sempier on the show with us. He's a triathlete, cyclist, a musician, but most importantly, he's the next guest on our show right now. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So why don't you give us, I know you're kind of a jack of all trades. You do cycling, you do triathletes. You're coming to us all the way from Florida, if anyone wanted to know. And you're also a musician, but what got you started in the music route? What really was your inspiration, and when did you get started?
I started pretty late, actually, recording and writing and stuff like that. I kind of have a journeyman's education in music where I just was a connoisseur, constantly buying and getting music. But how it first kind of started was my dad went over to England, came back with a record, and that first record, it was like that gateway, it was Adam and the Ants, Dirk Wears White Socks. I don't know how long it had been out. I was about probably 7 at the time, but when I put that record on and I listened to it, it just opened up the world to me. It was ridiculous. And I played it over and over and over. And I have an older brother and older sister, a lot older actually. And my brother, about 2 months later, took me to Sound Exchange, which is where I grew up in Wayne, New Jersey, which is a independent record shop. And he's like, I'll buy you another record. And I think he was probably sick of hearing, the Adam and the Ants. And ended up getting a second Adam and the Ants record, Kings of the Wild Frontier. So they were like my gateway drug, so to speak, in the music. And then I got turned on to MTV, which had Adam and the Ants on there, and Gary Newman. So I was like, wow. And then Depeche Mode, it was like, I was an 80s alternative guy. But the Four Horsemen, I guess I would consider my influences to be obviously Adam and the Ants there. But it would be like The Cure. I never hide behind my Cure influence at all. Echo and the Bunnymen, and then New Order. So that would be my 4 like pillars. And that's where, it just spins off from there.
Yeah, when it comes to influential bands, The Cure is one of mine too. Friday I'm in Love is one of my favorite songs of all time. I can listen to that song all the time. Whenever it's on the radio, I always got to crank it. But what was the first band that you joined, and what was that experience like?
The first band I was in, it's definitely, I don't know if the cover bands count.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So how I said I started late it was senior year in high school. Some friends had a band. They didn't have a bass player, and I said, I'll do it. I had never played an instrument before. So my brother showed me how to play all the songs. And we played Rush, Tom Sawyer, Ooh. Johnny B. Good, Hotel California, Stairway to Heaven. What's the one my wife loves? Don't Stop Believing from Journey. So we played all, and honestly, it's all stuff I hate, and I know people might not like that, but it's like, but I was just so happy to play. So that was the very first thing I did. And then I started getting like, I got my dad got me a 4-track recorder, drum machine. My friend, Dom, lifelong friend, gave me some of his gear, and I just started messing around. And that's where the recording came in. That's where Untitled Art kind of started. And I just started doing my own stuff. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I just was experimenting. But I would say the first real band I was in was a band called Lullaby, and that was a 3-piece, and it was kind of like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, if you're familiar with that indie New York style. That's what we were. We were the Yeah Yeah Yeahs before the Yeah Yeah Yeahs were the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. So
awesome. So what would you say is the most valuable lesson that you learned from that first band that you were in?
I was so nervous because I had no idea what I was really doing. I just repetition. I went home and I played those songs over and over and over and over again. That would be like what I would consider. As long as you practice and you just go over things and over them, you can play any song in the world. As long as you know how to play the instrument, you can learn it. So, and that's kind of a really valuable lesson. Learn your instrument, I guess, is like the key there. But yeah, that would be the first key, is like actually sitting down and trying to focus on one instrument. And I would say I played the bass for probably like the good first half of my music career, if you will, of just being a bass player and just, getting that craft down. Of course, I played the guitar and keyboards and stuff like that and drums, but it was more like, hacking my way through it.
Well, yeah, since you did mention you played all the instruments, what was the hardest instrument for you to pick up?
Patience. I would say probably the guitar, just because I had been playing the bass, and those extra strings, and they were thinner, and I was hitting the bass so hard that I would always knock the guitars out of tune. And there's nothing. I mean, you can create some really cool stuff with guitars going out of tune. All you have to do is like listen to shoegaze music, and there's so much droning. It's kind of cool, but when you're not trying to do that, it's kind of frustrating. So I'd say probably the guitar. And I came up in a time much where people were like showboating. Like Yngwie Malmsteen was like, or Eddie Van Halen was like the talk of the town. And for me, I'm listening to The Cure, which is a lot of sliding melodies.
Yep.
And so it was like, that spoke to me as opposed, because I don't have the dexterity that a lot of my contemporaries or people older than me or younger. I just don't have it. I never have. So I always kind of had to adapt. So I found the guitar the hardest.
Yeah. And we love to hear first concert stories. So what was the first show that you performed with as this band or with any bands overall? What was that first show like, and where did you perform, and how did it go?
I'm going to discount the cover band because that was like a one-off thing. It took a while before I played again. The first show I ever did, proper band would be Untitled Art, but prior to that, it was probably in it was in basements in a punk band, and they were just chaotic. I mean, the three chords, throwing the guitars around and making a lot of noise. That was the stereotypical way in. But the first real show for Untitled Art was in New York City. We actually played a festival, outdoor festival. There's 25,000 people at that festival. We played, it was ridiculous, and that was it went downhill all the way after that. I mean, it was just, but it was pretty cool. I mean, there were so many people there. It was a little strange, that to have that as our first show, but it went pretty good and it was cool.
I was going to say, because how do you deal with that? Because there's no way that you're probably going to have a second show right after that that's going to have nearly as many people. So like, how do you internalize that being like, this might be the biggest show that we ever play and it's our first ever show?
Right. It was odd. I mean, we just to put in perspective, we did play a second show that day as well. So play this festival in New York, and the streets are crowded. It's packed. 25,000 people. It's amazing. I know we played a cover. I don't know what song it was. Obviously, that got the most reaction. But we went around a couple blocks down to the Luna Lounge in New York and probably played to 20 people. So, both perspectives in one shot. So,
would you prefer playing in front of the big crowds? Or do you like the more intimate crowds? I mean, because we get a variety of answers. Some people like the intimate crowds because it seems like you're making more of a connection with the audience. But what is your personal preference?
Ego wise, I would obviously want a massive crowd and have everyone singing. I mean, we've played shows like in Canada when we played up there. I mean, it was amazing having people dance, and there's so many people, and we played all ages shows, and then we played at night, and it's packed, and it was awesome, and those memories stick out. But some of the all ages shows that we played in like halls where you have young kids and you have a band on the other stage over there playing, and then they stop, and then everyone turns around and faces you when you play. Those were pretty amazing, and the kids, they were so supportive. So I would say I'm kind of like in the middle. Too big, maybe it's not intimate enough, and I don't know how you really connect with people. But too small, I don't really wish for the intimate, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm a little shy, and I'm a little antisocial. I don't mean to be. Once you get me going, I could be very personal and outgoing, but it's so I get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I can completely understand that. But what led you to your current project that you're working on, your current music? Was there a backstory between that, or was it just you kind of picked it up after a while? What's the story behind your current project?
So yeah, there's a lot of history. There's a big gap in between from when I first started and then when I started back up again. It was about maybe 7-9 years layoff time. And I had done a lot of like alternative, like we were billed as the American version of The Cure. And in that time period, I also played in a really big goth band, The Empire Hideous. Mike Hideous, he sang for the Misfits. Great goth band. And they had a history to them, and it was great. But we also shared studio space with Thursday. I don't know if you know who they are, the emo band, and then My Chemical Romance.
Oh, yep,
so,
yep.
Yeah, so we shared studio space with them. So it was Pensy Prep first, and then they morphed into My Chemical. Yeah. And so I'd say around when they were going to Japan, I started to lose interest in music, mostly because it was like I was good friends with Alex from Eyeball Records, and we had a whole, I've had a couple of record contract offers, and everything has always fallen apart. And Alex has always tried to help me, and it just never panned out, for us. And I kind of got a little, and I just kind of quit music altogether after that. And it was more of like, all right, it's not going to happen the way I want it to. My friends are taking off, and it is what it is. And I just focused on the triathlon stuff more. I went full hog into that. But somewhere along 2015, I started to get kind of bored, and I wanted a creative outlet again. And I set the studio back up, and I just started recording. And I started to put songs together much like I used to, the goth style, the post-punk style. And I was like, man, I've done this before. I don't really feel like doing this. And that's where the producer I work with, James Linton, he's out of Soundwaves in Arizona. He mixes and masters my stuff. And we started talking, and I just started telling him what I was thinking, what was in my head. And I was like, I can't really get out what's in my head properly. And then we just had hours and hours of conversations about sound design, drum sounds, bass sounds, keyboards, everything. You name it, we talked about it. We talked about the past. We talked about what I was looking for, that sort of thing. And what you heard, that first record, we have 3 records completely in the can, and I'm working on a 4th one. So I have a 5-year plan. So I went from, quitting altogether to now having a 5-year plan. It's mental. All artists are pretty much mental, I think.
That's one thing I have come to realize from doing all these podcasts, for sure.
Yeah.
So for most people that haven't heard your music, you have sort of adapted more of a techno-ish sort of sound. I really, really enjoyed it. And I mean, when it gets released, I'll recommend it to everyone that I know of. But what inspired you to do that type of genre in particular? Because it is not sort of your goth. It isn't your punk that you were associated with early on. What inspired you to make that change?
I had always, so back in the day, we worked with Tim Gillis at Big Blue Meanie Studios out of New Jersey. He worked with all the emo bands, the punk bands. He's got a laundry list of clients that's unbelievable. And he helped me quite a bit. And I always felt he understood what I was looking for with my songs and able to get it out of me and that sort of thing. And then all this time in between, I just wasn't capturing stuff. And Scott Kahn, you had him on a show. Mm-hmm. He actually helped me finish one of the records in his studio. And, he got me a little further down the road. And I just wasn't capturing what I wanted. And then enter James, where we had those long discussions. And I'm a big fan of industrial music. I'm a big fan of, electronic music, but not dubstep, not trance, not house. I don't listen to any of that. I don't care for any electronic music for the most part, other than like Depeche Mode, New Order. It's got to have a song structure to it for me to actually like it. I like Covenant. I don't know if you know who they are, but they're, a great industrial band. And I wanted to incorporate those kind of elements to my songs, just to kind of make a little bit of a right hand turn. And I always had wanted that, but I just never met somebody that could kind of get it out of me. And James was able to pull it out. And, I've gone on record calling him, a genius. He's gone on record calling me a creative genius. And I think together we kind of, we have a tension. I haven't talked to him in months. So after we finished the last record, we haven't talked because, it's a push and pull, and we definitely pushed and pulled each other apart on this. So, and I think it shows up in the music,
Yeah. One of the things that I realized is that for a lot of your songs, it takes a while before you get actual like lyrics in the song. Some of the songs take like a minute and a half. Some of the songs take like over a minute. When it came down to that, I mean, that's really not ordinary when I come to listen to music. I mean, usually lyrics enter and usually like sometimes even close to like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Was that a deliberate decision for you to sort of let people get adjusted to the sound of the song before you kind of pounded them with your lyrics?
It might be subconsciously done. I mean, back in the day, there's a song called Shutdown. It's on iTunes. It's under Untitled Art, and it's got a really long intro with the guitar and the melodies and all that stuff. And I sing one verse. There's no chorus, and the song ends. And it drove all my bandmates, all the people in the band, nuts. They're like, dude, you got to write in a structure. And I'm like, I don't. This is what I hear in my head. And they're like, you have to. And I'm, nah, I'm okay with it. So I don't really have a conventional style. I know that. I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm just going what I would like to hear. Like a song from The Cure. I'll use the Cure since it's major influence. The song "The Kiss," which comes off of one of their records. I love how, I mean, it's been ridiculous how long the guitar intro is, and he comes in and he sings and it's over. I always was, wow, that always meant something to me. And I also listen to a lot of shoegaze stuff. So that seeps in too, because they take time to develop, or they drone on, and you get into this kind of lost space. So yeah, some of it is like, yeah, I want to introduce stuff, and yeah, I do have a certain vocal style. I think the one thing with all the songs I've done is probably, whether it be a post-punk, goth, or punk rock, or now kind of electronic influence, my vocals are that, what would you call it? I guess the glue that holds it all together. As soon as I open my mouth, it's obviously an Untitled art song. So I think that's the one thing that holds it all together. But yeah, I mean, my wife said to me that I spent a lot of time watching Deadmau5. You know how he does the videos on YouTube? And I did. I had never done it before, but James is the reason I did that. He was like, you got to go back and look at what Deadmau5 is doing, because you guys have a lot in common, like meaning, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I never listened to him. I kind of did, and it's a dick move of me. I discounted him because of the gimmick of the mouse head, But I can tell you, I am obsessed. I think he's a genius. So it's like, and I watched that, and I was so far behind to probably the people who are like, duh,
Yeah.
But I'm watching him, and when he discovered that singer for one of his songs, he discovered it online. The guy sent him the vocals. I was like, I jumped up and was like, that's it. I was like, I was like mirroring him on the thing. I was like blown away by the vocals. I was like, I don't know if it was a setup or not. I don't care if that really happened in real time. It was brilliant. And I was sold after that. But as far as following other artists, I don't listen to any electronic music like that. I don't want to take anything from them either,
Absolutely. And when it comes down to the lyrics, how do you get inspiration for your lyrics? A lot of people might say it's like day-to-day interactions, and when they might hear something like, oh, that would make a great lyric, or it's stuff that you might hear in the news that you might just hear like in the back of your head where you're like, oh, that sounds pretty like cool for a lyrically. What is your main process like when it comes to lyrics?
I write constantly, like on a pad and paper, and I just scribble all different like verses or phrases or whatever. I might think of something and I just write it down. And I have like papers everywhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they might be about something, they might not be. 90% of my stuff is, I'm very selfish in the way I write, for sure. I write about, from my point of view, what I want to hear. And it's a lot of my relationships that I've had. And a lot of people don't even realize that I'm writing about them. They love the song and they have no idea it's about them. So I never tell anybody what my songs are technically about. But the record that I sent you, it's titled 13, and there is a theme. And the second one is a 13 part 2. And there's a theme to it, and it is about suicide, and it is about depression, and it is taking that on. And, not to get too winded on it, I had been suicidal at one point. I'm not anymore, and I kind of made it through. But I made it through by getting into the sports and, having that kind of, and I think, it is what it is. But I kind of took that subject on. And it was a bonding moment for James and I. We both have a past that involves this in some way, shape, or form. And all the lyrics kind of all have that in there. But there's a key moment, and I think you said before we started recording, on the end, you like the piano in the beginning of that. And that's really the start of the bright spot of making it through to the other side. So you're in the dark place, come through out the other side, and you realize life is shit, but it doesn't have to end. It doesn't always have to be perfect. So that's kind of, the running theme is kind of a lot of things that happened in the past, and I just kind of brain dumped them out. But as far as like writing songs, I do pick different pieces from maybe this piece of paper, that piece of paper, and merge them together. And oddly enough, that piece of paper over here is about person A, and this piece of paper over here is about person A as well. And it just so happens that they line up. It's very strange, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that just must be just. I mean, that's a fascinating way of writing. That's the first time I've ever heard anyone ever say that they came up with something like that. And I always love to ask every guest that we have on here, when it comes to song titles, we always have one of two options that people tell us. The first one is that they take lyrics that they've already written and then decide which one would work best as a song title. And the second option is that they'll have the song title already written and then they'll base lyrics off of that. What is your process like when it comes to those two, or is it sort of a mixture of both?
It's a mixture. I would prefer to have the. Do you know the band Brand New? Have you ever heard of them?
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Okay, so I love them. I think they're like the emo version of the Smiths, basically. And I love that their song titles were so long, and I love that. And I wanted to copy that, but I didn't. Even though I would like my song titles to have absolutely nothing to do with the song, I would much rather do that, and maybe even write the titles out in a story so it means something, someone could decode it. That's what I would like to do. But usually I pull it from the song in some way, shape, or form. So, so every once in a while a title will come out and it has absolutely nothing to do with the song. Like Philly to Long Branch. That's a good. I don't mention any of that in the song. So
I was gonna say, I saw that title and I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool title. I was like, what does that come from? But when it comes down, I think probably my favorite question to ask every guest that I have on here is, when it comes to performing live, a lot of people describe it sort of as like a drug unlike any other. And it's just the best thing that they look forward to. It really just shows, all their hard work. They're finally able to perform live in front of people. What is that feeling like specifically for you when you're in front of people and just performing live?
I think the feelings you get, it's really cool when people are singing along with you and they know the song. Or when we used to be like basically the house band for the Loop Lounge in Passaic, New Jersey. We opened up for so many people there. Bruce, the owner, would let us come in. Bobby from this record store hooked us up, and then Alex from Eyeball. Everybody just was like, "Hey, keep playing," kind of thing. We play with everybody, and we would have people be like, I drove from Connecticut to come see you. Or, I drove all the way from, Pennsylvania. It's like, wow. All right, cool. You came to this shithole. Awesome. It wasn't a shithole, but you know what I mean? It's like, it was very humbling, and it's like, that was cool. And like, it made me awkward because I was always like, God, have you ever heard of this band, that band, that they're so much more amazing than what we're doing? We're just, you know what I mean? Like, it's very hard. Like, I have a hard time with it. I want people to like the music. I want people to appreciate and maybe help them and maybe relate to it. And that's what I'm really hoping for, to connect. I always said, if I connect with 10 people, I'll feel very lucky. And, it's been more than 10 people, which is nice, but it's awkward. I'm very, very shy. So I get like, I hope I don't screw this up. That I do have that, but it is cool playing live. I do like it. I know when Scott, it's very funny because when Scott told the CBGB story, he was actually in my band playing. He was helping us out. And we were playing CBGBs, and it was the first time we played CBGBs. Went in and we're in the green room. I was like, this is amazing. So for me, like, but he was right. The bathroom wasn't that far away, and people.
I remember that story. Yep. You always talk about how they were so close to the bathroom that everyone would just kind of budge into them when they came by. Yeah, I absolutely remember that. But when I love to ask too, when you're performing live, does time seem to speed up, or does it seem to stand still, or is it a mixture also with that?
I typically, I think it goes by really fast. I found, we like to play shorter sets. So typically, they'll say, 45 minutes, we'll play 30. It's kind of a dick move, but we do that on purpose because typically, if you're the middle band, bands take a little longer to set up, break down, and they waste time. And I don't want people to really, I don't want them to leave. I want them to be engaged right away. So I play a shorter set. I always drove everyone nuts with that. But yeah, I would say, I don't know.
It happens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to play live. That's the plan. James and I were supposed to play 2017. We were supposed to actually be, on tour in Europe. That was the goal. And we were going to do 13 shows, but we were so behind on what we were working on. We were like a year and a half behind on the process. So it kind of it kind of messed things up. James is pretty busy with it. He's got a lot of clients that he mixes and masters and works with. So it kind of set us back. So then I'm kind of left like, okay, if he's not going to play live, then who am I going to have play with me? Because I wanted him to be a part of it. I asked him to be a member of the band. And this is a bone of contention for my wife. She's like, you're not a band, you're a solo act with support crew, and your support crew keeps changing. She's like, so you're not a band. But she worked for Sony Records for 20 years. So she's like kind of an authority on it, and I'm like, I'm a band. She's like, you're not. So, but the goal is to play live at some point. I mean, we have Miami not that far from here, which is an electronic capital in some way, shape, or form. And it's kind of a crime that I'm not taking advantage of it. I'm starting to, get out there and expand and start to, release stuff and put it out there and, get reviews and get people interested in that sort of thing. So we'll take it from there. I mean, I have my first rehearsal on this Saturday with a couple of guys to try to make it sound pretty and hopefully play live.
Yeah. And again, you guys, Untitled Art, we're going to take a little break from talking about his musician career now because we're going off to the cyclist topic, because I was super excited when he told me that he's a cyclist as well, because I am not nearly a cyclist. I mean, I love going on bike rides. It's one of my favorite things to do, especially during the summer, fall, and spring up here in Minnesota. I like to go out probably 3 or 4 times a week. Especially at night. I mean, riding my bike is one of the things that I just enjoy most out of a lot of other things, but out of all the things that you could do, what about cycling really inspired you to sort of take that up?
My dad, there's wide world of sports, and my dad would watch it all the time. And the Tour de France would be on, and there was an American by the name of Greg LeMond, and I was like, "What's this?" And I literally was like obsessed with the sport, and it's just like the music. I just kind of dove in cycling magazines and just went a little batshit crazy with the sport. And it helped that I was a runner first in high school. And so I had an athletic background. I was pretty fast. So, I mean, I would run, under 5 minutes a mile. And then I just kind of was obsessed with the cycling aspect and started bike riding all over. I mean, I BMX'd. I mean, I have a crazy background a little bit. I've always said I've lived life kind of in reverse because I've done so many things, and now it's kind of like, a reality of life. But, I was a skateboarder, snowboarder. I'm a surfer, cyclist, triathlete, duathlete, mountain biker. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But the bike for me was like, it's like everybody else says escapism, but the Tour de France is what really hooked me. Just seeing these guys go up these mountains and being like, what? So that was really cool. The triathlon thing didn't come until a little later, for when I was in college. I met somebody, and they were, they gave me a challenge. They're like, I don't think you could ever do a triathlon, because I had been running and biking, but I hadn't swum at all. And I was like, I think I could do it. And they had done a race, and they're like, this is the race they did. This is their time. And they're like, you won't even come close to my time. I'm like, not only will I come close to your time, I'll beat your time. And that's what happened. And then I was bit by the triathlon bug, and it was, I mean, I've raced so many places. So yeah, it's crazy.
One of the things that people don't talk about is that you can still sort of get your runner's high just from biking. It can still occur. So what does that high feel like compared to performing live? Are they similar at all, or are they very different to you?
Very different. Very different. Actually, so going back to the suicidal aspect of it, when I was straight dab in the middle of racing serious as a triathlete, something catastrophic happened, and that's where I kind of went dark. And the sport itself is absolutely therapeutic in so many levels. You get in the pool, you swim, it's your own thoughts. Get on the bike, your own thoughts. Get on a long run, your own thoughts. So you're left to confront a lot of things going on in your head or in your life. And it's amazing how you can solve so many problems and issues just by being athletic or healthy or actually, making the effort. And I found, that's kind of, it's key. So I don't get the high from it. I get a lot of pain and suffering. Yeah. I mean, so this weekend, I just came back. I was in Georgia in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I just did, it's called Six Gap. And it's basically a 104-mile race through the Blue Ridge Mountains and 10,000 feet of climbing. And it was brutal, man. And the worst part, here's the worst part. All my gears weren't working, so I only had half my cluster in the rear to use. So it was exceptionally tough. Like some of those climbs are like 10% for 7 miles, so it just keeps going. It's beautiful. I had never been there before, and I was blown away. So I didn't get a cycling high per se, but you feel elated after an event, and then you reflect. I'm never running a marathon again, and then you find yourself signing up for another marathon. So, it's cool. Yeah. Athletics I think is very important.
One of the benefits, I think, especially to doing what you do, is that you can kind of, in my opinion, you probably have like an unlimited metabolism. What has that been like for you? Can you really just eat whatever you want now since you exercise as much as you do?
Not anymore. I used to be able to. Like, I mean, I'm drinking a Coke, which is, not probably so good, but I eat M&Ms. I definitely like chocolate. I am eating better. For sure. I do a lot of greens and lean protein and pasta and stuff like that. But I used to be able to get away with eating whatever I want. Not so much anymore. My metabolism is cruising along pretty good. I'm at 150 right now, maybe 148. So I'm pretty skinny. 5'11". So I mean, I'm pretty lean. But yeah, I mean, I do watch my calories though. Like an event over the weekend, I was probably about 4,200 calories burned, maybe plus the 1,500 for just survival. So you're talking like a 5,000 calorie day. But I had probably 1.5 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a cup of Coke, probably 6 water bottles, 3 sports drinks, 3 water, 2 goos, and and I was starving when I was done, but I wasn't sore or anything like that. So I got the nutrition right for the event pretty much, but it takes years of practice to get that right. It's another sport in itself, is trying to get the diet and the nutrition right. Yeah.
What's been your favorite scenery that you've ever biked through? Because I mean, I can only imagine out of all the places that you've biked, some of them have just been probably some breathtaking scenes, but what has been your favorite?
It's probably Edinburgh, Scotland. We raced up around Arthur's Seat, and we did the Royal Mile and that sort of thing. So it was really cool. That was really amazing. You see the Edinburgh Castle, and that race was brutal. That was a world championship. So that was a duathlon worlds, and that was hard. I mean, I redlined it for the run, and I didn't do very well. That was a rough introduction into, the world championships, because it was ITU style. So it's different. Most people associate triathlon and duathlon with Ironman, long distance events. This is more short course and, high pace and that sort of thing. It's hard. I would say that was probably one of my favorite. We did a race, another worlds in France, Nancy, France, and or Nancy, but it was that was cool because it was the same run-in that the Tour de France does. So I got to actually do the course that the Tour de France guys did, and that was like a lifelong, want. So going back to that beginning with Greg LeMond and seeing him in the Tour. So I got to check that box off. So those would probably be my 2 favorite. And then obviously running and racing in your home state is always cool too.
So what is the hardest aspect about the triathlon for you? Is it the swimming, is it the running, or is it the cycling?
It used to be cycling for me because I was a runner, and it just took to swimming without a problem. The cycling was my weakest event when I first started because I wasn't training properly. So I would say that was the hardest. Now it's my ace. I don't even have to run really, because I bike ride so much. I basically ride 6 to 7 days a week, and sometimes it might be, doubling up on the day or whatever. I would say the run now has become the challenge because I did it was a long course duathlon here in Florida, and I ended up tearing my hamstring because they had us run on sand, and it was long, and I just didn't have the strength or something, and it tore. So now I've been struggling on the run. So that would be my weakest, So I'll do good on the swim. I'll do good on the bike, and I'll get out in front. but everyone's going to catch me. I'm going to have to hobble at home.
So is there always a certain order that they have you do when it comes to like, do you always run first, swim, and then bike? Or do they like to mix it up for different triathlons? Or is there like a universally accepted like order that they always take?
It's pretty much swim, bike, run. And then the duathlon is run, bike, run. They do have where you do swim, bike, now, and there's some cool races like the SOS race up in upstate New York where, you have a bike, a run, a swim, a run, a swim, a run and a swim kind of thing. That's kind of cool. And, sometimes they'll do a race in reverse, or they'll have super sprints, where you're doing multiple events and stuff like that. They're not as common. But yeah, typically it's swim, bike, run, and, it's cool. I mean, there's Xterra events where you can go off road. And some of them are pretty cool because you'll swim, you'll come out and go around, and you run across the beach and then swim again. And, depending on how long it is, you might do a couple loops like that. So it's kind of cool, so they kind of switch it up a little bit. But yeah, typically just swim, bike, run.
So I have a theory. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but when I heard your first song, Philly to Long Branch, I thought, this guy's a cyclist. This song kind of sounds like a song that you hear like when you're doing like those cycling classes or something like that, especially when it started out. So has your cycling kind of influenced you musically to kind of make songs that you think would be enjoyable to listen to people if they are riding a bike? Because that's what I found through a lot of your songs. I was like, if I was going on a bike ride, this might be something I'd want to listen to kind of get me amped up.
I would hope that people would have that reaction to it. It's not consciously, but a lot of my music songwriting is done on the bike, and in the car and that sort of thing. When I'm zoning out, I hear the beats, I hear the bass lines or the melodies, and I try to remember them, or I might sing them into my iPhone. I'll pull it out and I'll be like, I'll hum it. It's kind of embarrassing, but when you listen to it back, I'm like, ooh, some of them are really bad, and some of them turn out to be really good. But I do agree with you. Philly to Long Branch, that part 1. Did you hear part 2? Did you hear it there? I might have put 2 versions in there. So the first version is like a drum and bass, straightforward. So I agree with you. That should be like redlining, let's push it hard.
Yep.
And there's a song called A Fighter's Heart that I have. I have a couple different versions of it. I feel like that should be played in like a sports arena for like a hockey team, when it's like, so yeah, there is that element there. It must happen osmosisly, but, and I going back and thinking while we're talking here, I would say this is kind of weird, but I'll tell you a song that I wrote called February. Again, it's on iTunes under 5 Star Dive, one of the bands I was in. But how I wrote that song, it's a weird process. Driving my car and Madonna song comes on, it's a remix, and the first 30 seconds is drum and bass and this keyboard thing, and I just kept repeating it, and I just kept humming a guitar part over it until it got ingrained in my head. And I just wrote the lyrics right then and there, and going over it. And when I got home, I pulled up the 8-track, hit it, did the drum, did the bass, did the guitar I heard, and then sang it. And I pretty much wrote that song within like probably an hour tops. And Scott actually helped me finish that version. And that version that you hear is lifted right from the 8-track. So that whole process, it took not a lot of time. Hopefully it doesn't sound like it didn't take a lot of time, but
I'll definitely give it a listen to. I mean, and I'll give links to all of his stuff down below. But I like to ask these 2 questions too that we have of every guest. If someone were to walk up to you on the street and say like, "Hey, I'm really thinking about getting into music. I'm really thinking about, just exploring music and seeing what that could accomplish me," what would be the best piece of advice that you would have for that person in order for them to be successful, not only in like maybe, creating good music that people enjoy, but just enjoying the process themselves? What would be your best piece of advice?
I would say, overall, be creative. I'm not afraid to put the flanger pedal after the delay pedal, so to speak. I think some of the most interesting music comes from, people really not knowing what they're doing, and it just kind of happens. And I think that's probably what I would consider some of the most interesting and best advice I can give. Just be yourself. The world really doesn't need another Green Day. So, and it's not that I don't like Green Day. It's just, it's been done and they have a style and that sort of thing. It's nice to emulate and maybe, but it's great to experiment and just be creative. And, I've stumbled upon some really cool stuff just by messing around. And I think that's it. That's the key. And just be yourself. Like you said before, I do these introductions, without just going right to the hook right away. I really don't care what pop music is doing. I really don't care what my contemporaries are doing or the people that came before me or after me. I just want to hear good music, and I want to hear what I want to hear. So that's what I kind of do. And I just stayed true to myself. I know it sounds kind of cheesy to say that, but I think some of the best artists or the most interesting artists are the ones who are just themselves. So, I don't hide my influences, but I also try to put my own stamp on it too. I think that's the best thing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that. And if you were to talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice that you would give them?
Don't pick up an instrument. No, I would say the music industry has changed so much from when I first got into music all the way back in like 7, 8 years, 9 years old, 10 years old or whatever to now. I've seen it evolve and change so much that it's hard to really give advice. I think in terms of for like kids coming up now, I think unfortunately you have to kind of do everything yourself. You can't. I don't think you should rely on a record label. Not with the power of the internet and social media and things like Bandcamp and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat. You can do a lot with that on your own. You don't really need to have anyone help you. I mean, and they want to give you a 360 deal. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. So James and I had the opportunity for that, and we turned it down because wasn't enough money. Now, later on, my wife was like, "You're stupid," because that's like a lot of money for these days, but make more money, what I do now. So it's like, and same for him. And it's like, we needed, a little bit more. So in order to give advice, kids are savvy, man. The 18-year-old kid, he knows how to get, maybe people to, the social media aspect. I think that's a big thing. And just make a good song. A good song is a good song is a good song. If it's a good song and people can find it and you know how to market yourself or get it out there, unfortunately, it is a business. It's terrible that it is, but it is. I would just say be yourself and just play live. You got to get out there and have people see you. You can do a lot of things online, but you still got to get out and meet and greet people. I don't think that ever gets old.
Absolutely. And you're talking about great songs or making good songs. What is your definition of a good song? Is there a certain criteria that you kind of look for in a song when it comes to saying that it's good or great?
Yeah. So I definitely find stuff, maybe like My Bloody Valentine is a record. Loveless is a record that a lot of people talk about, and I love that record. Disintegration from The Cure, brilliant. Sometimes I argue that Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me might be a little better than Disintegration. That's kind of taboo, but it's just whatever. But so in those two examples, you have My Bloody Valentine, and people might not be able to digest it, right? Because there's not a lot to latch onto. For me, there is, but for other people, maybe not so much. The Cure, there's these beautiful melodies, these soundscapes are beautiful, and then he's got a unique voice. I guess to answer it, I would say the last 3 records that I've been obsessed with is a dream pop singer by the name of Hazel English. Amazing. Sounds beautiful. The songs are beautiful. So I would say, that word keeps coming up, beautiful, right? So I'm looking for melody. I'm looking for, some kind of something to hook me. On the other end, the other record I've been obsessed with is a band called Actors, and it's cold. It's dark. It's like kind of cold wave post-punk. It's very singular in sound, and I love it. It's very monotone is what I would, or chromatic, and I love it. So she's very sweet and light and airy and just this thing, and then they're kind of the opposite. And so I guess what I look for is something to grab my attention. I've always fallen on the right side of finding bands that sound really good before they become famous or popular. And I still kind of do that to this day. And I think what it is I'm looking for melody. I think mostly. I think it comes down to good songwriting, maybe. But I think it's the melody. I think that's what I latch on to. I don't have to understand the words. They could be singing in Russian. If it's cool, it's cool. And I'll listen to it. So I don't know. I think it's melody.
Yeah, I completely with melody. Yeah, that's probably one of the big indicators. That's what I really think makes it so that I can enjoy songs of different genres from basically all genres. If you have a good melody, that is the backbone for me for an enjoyable song as well. But when it comes to the name Untitled Art, how did you get the copyright for that? Because you'd think that would be such a popular name that, like, how did you get that? Because that would be one of those names where I was like, that would probably be one of the first ones that people would scoop up when they're coming up with names.
Oh yeah. I can you see what that is? It's a beer, Untitled Art. So, and then there's Untitled Art Festival and stuff like that. Yeah, I did it back in the '90s. So I registered it a long time ago. And it came about by I was in New York and it was in the I want to say the MoMA. It might have been Natural. I don't remember which art museum I was in, but I was walking around. There was an exhibit, and it said "Untitled Artist, Untitled Artist, Untitled Artist," and I shortened it to Untitled Art, and just stuck with it for a long time. But yeah, I registered it a long time ago. But it doesn't. I'm not worried. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, if people look up Untitled Art and they see the art exhibit, that's great because I love art. And if they pull up the beer company, that's great too because I love beer and I love their beer. I'm kind of biased by the name, but typically, like if someone's going to search for me, you can either put my name in or Untitled Art Music, and that pulls up a lot more. If you just put Untitled Art, you'll get a plethora of stuff that doesn't relate to me and stuff that does. But if you put Untitled Art Music, it's pretty much all me.
So we're talking about, I mean, you have your songs on iTunes, you have your songs on like Bandcamp, Spotify, all those places. So like if people were to search for you, they could find you basically anywhere.
Yeah, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Bandcamp. I post a lot of stuff on Twitter. So everything that comes out, whether it be a review or a video or something like that. So it's at Untitled Dave. I have to remember that. I'm not very good at remember that. Did you see the videos? I don't know if you saw any of my videos. Did you see the videos that I did?
No, I haven't seen the videos, but I can definitely check them out after we're done here.
I'm going to send a link to them because there's an element. A lot of the videos, they're all done. I've done them all now. They all kind of relate to the sonic versions. So the video versions are a little different than what comes out on iTunes. What's a little bit different than what's on SoundCloud, and a little bit different what's on Bandcamp. So each version is a little different too. So one person that gave me a review actually picked up on that. I was very surprised. I was not expecting someone to notice that there's little differences like that, but it was on purpose.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, I'll leave a link down below for all of his stuff, especially his Twitter, for those videos that he sends me. We're really interested in that. And when it comes to releasing your new music, do you have any like dates in mind when you're going to release your new material?
I kind of and since I'm independently doing it, I just kind of make it up as I go. A couple of them have been released on my birthday, May 1st, then my daughter's birthday. So like the dates come out for personal things, but the record I keep pushing it back because like I'm not 100% ready. But the record, I'm thinking October, maybe November. I want to have the first record out before Christmas. So I'm not sure the exact date, but iTunes. I'm probably putting it on Bandcamp, but I'm probably focused on iTunes. I don't know. It's hard to make money by doing that, so it doesn't really matter these days. Unless you're going to play live, that's where you're going to make the money. So it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. So I'll leave links below for all that stuff too, and reminders when it gets announced. I'll definitely make an announcement on here. But when it comes to your shows, do you have any shows coming up that you're preparing for?
Not yet. We're like I said, we're going to get together this weekend, the first, and see how it goes. The goal is to actually start playing live. So I would say if things go well, this first get together, I mean, if it goes by fast, and we'd start to set stuff up right away. If not, a couple months, I would say. I mean, I want to. There's going to be a video element to it, and so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of production involved in it. So, I mean, if you've seen any videos lately of live bands, you see there's always something going on behind. So we must have the same thing going on.
Yeah. Well, again, if there's any shows upcoming, I'll announce it on the podcast here. Oh, no worries at all. And again, you guys, we have David here, Untitled Art. definitely highly recommend you go and check him out. I just listened to his stuff. It was really, really awesome. I mean, and I know I got new tunes now for some of my bike rides that I go on for sure. It's definitely just, it really, especially with songs like The End. For everyone out there, when that song gets released, I highly recommend The End. You can copyright me right now. You can do whatever. The End is going to be the one that I think you'll really, really enjoy. That was probably my favorite one that I enjoyed, just because it did sound a little bit different than all the other things. And it was one of those songs where you're like, oh, this is a different genre kind of. And then it went back to sort of the techno feel, which I really, really enjoyed. But yeah, again, you guys, Untitled Art. I'll leave links down below for everything. And Dave, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap it up here?
No, man, just anybody that I've ever known along the way. I appreciate you checking it out and supporting me either way. Yeah. And anyone I've ever met, it was nice to meet you.
And I got to give a shout out again to Scott Kahn, because he was the reason why we got connected. So Scott Kahn, everyone go and check out his episode if you haven't seen it already. If you're checking out this episode, Scott was a really great guy as well. And he's got some music coming out that I'll plug when it does come out. But again, you guys,
his record's good. I like it.
Yeah.
I like his record. It's good.
Yeah. He shared it with me, and I really enjoyed it. I told him, I was like, yeah, that's going to be really good. And I said, just let me know the day it gets released and I'll plug it and everything. So yeah, again, you guys, Scott Kahn also. But Untitled Art said it the last time now, so go and check them out. All the links down below. We cannot thank Dave enough for coming on the show. It was really, really great talking with him, and this is the first guest that we've had that's actually done both of our interests, the health and fitness aspect and the musician aspect, so it was really, really awesome. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.